For my 200th video, I wanted to solve an age-old Minecraft problem. Long distance travel. So we've all been in the situation where we want to be thousands and thousands of blocks away, but as we all know, travelling in Minecraft is slow and it takes ages to do. So what I have for you today is a method to travel a very, very, very long distance in a very, very short amount of time. So first off, look at my coordinates, specifically the Z coordinate, 225. So without further ado, I'm going to show you my super ender cannon. So let me show you this in action. So first off, you can notice we are in the nether, and that is very important. So I'm going to just quickly rush through this. So we're going to load up the cannon, press this button, and we're going to wait for the cannon to actually load. You see that with the clicks, if you listen carefully. Okay, that's done. Press this button. And we will wait momentarily, and hopefully this goes to plan. Fantastic, it did. Lovely. So you will notice that we are in this new area now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to the portal, and I will show you that we have travelled 6,000 blocks. We just travelled 6,000 blocks, and this is very, very cool. So let me explain how everything works. Now, credit where it's due, this is not technically my enderpearl cannon. This is, hi folks, I'm Adam's enderpearl cannon. If you want to see how it actually properly works, you should go check out his video. I'll put an annotation on the screen somewhere, and you should click that right about now. But that's not actually what I'm going to be focusing on and explaining in this video. Enderpearl cannons have long since had a bit of an issue. So whilst I think they're better than player launchers because they can actually be used for travel in easy, normal and hard, they can only actually take you so far, and that's about 150 blocks before they stop working. So what I mean by that is you could have a very weak ender cannon and an extremely powerful ender cannon, but they'll actually be on the same part. And why is that? It's basically because once they hit unloaded chunks, they will stop working until you actually approach it. So it kind of loses its purpose, because even if you could launch an enderpearl 10,000 blocks away, it's only going to take you to those 10,000 blocks if the chunk that it lands in is loaded. So how have I solved this? Well, it's very obvious. I've used chunk loaders, and this is actually a modification of JL's design, and I will link that in the video as well, because I'm just stealing people's things today. But let me show you how that one works. Before I jump into that, I'm going to try to explain the different kinds of chunk loaders. Now, I've got 4 here, 2 of which don't exist yet, to my knowledge, but I'm going to mention them anyway. So, the first one is the redstone chunk loader. Now, what this is basically a chunk loader that allows previously unloaded chunks to process things like block updates that are controlled by the player, such as redstone, pistons, lamps, and all that stuff, sort of things. Now the next layer, and this one is the one we're actually using, is the entity processing chunk loader. Now this one works like the previous layer, but it actually allows for entities to be processed, as the previous one does not. Now the next one is random block update chunk loader. Now this doesn't exist at the moment to my knowledge, but basically the previous 2 don't allow for random block updates. So things like grass won't grow, and watermelons won't grow, and all that sort of thing. So you can't really have automated farms with these. Now the 4th one is the total mimicry of a player. So even this one doesn't actually allow for things like mob spawning and stuff. You need a player for that. So at the moment these 2 don't exist, but the chunk loader that I'm using here actually basically uses these 2 levels. So the way this works is fairly sort of straightforward, but it might be a bit confusing at first. From this point on, I'm probably going to be speaking out of my arse just a little bit, so don't take anything I say for fact. This is just my speculation on how things work. So to create one of these redstone chunk loaders, all you really have to do is send a signal through unloaded chunks. So consider the brown section loaded chunks and the pink section unloaded chunks. This will technically load this chunk, alright? This, however, does not create one of those entity chunk loaders. So this next bit was actually discovered by Panda, and I believe that JL's design was actually based off Panda's discovery as well, so I'll link Panda as well. So the way I believe this works is, consider all of these blocks here chunks, okay? So this green one here is entity chunk loader. So the way to achieve one of these entity chunk loaders is basically by combining some of these redstone chunk loaders, if you're following me. So this 3x5 grid here of orange chunks will actually turn this one into an entity chunk loader, if that makes sense. So if these 3x5 grid are loaded in the same fashion as that, and this one is loaded as well, this one will turn into an entity chunk loader. I think that's how that works. I'm not completely sure. I think that's what JL was talking about in his video, and Panda even. But don't take that for fact. I'm not actually sure if that's the case. So what happens when I press this button? Basically, this gigantic field is loaded. Okay, so it's about 9 chunks across and 700 blocks that way. So why does it need to be that wide? Well, it's all down to the fact that the Enderpearl is an entity and it needs an uninterrupted route. So consider this our Enderpearl cannon's position and this our destination. If we chuck the Enderpearl, well, we'll launch the Enderpearl, it needs to get there safely without being interrupted. So if there's an unloaded chunk here and it passes through the unloaded chunk, then it won't actually reach the destination and it won't actually teleport us because this chunk is unloaded. So you might be wondering, why not just make it 1 wide? Well, because of such the large distance, that 700 blocks, the Enderpearl will actually not go in a straight line. Why won't it go in a straight line? Well, if I click F3 and you look at the F and next to the south it says 2.72, that number there. If I move that, basically you can't actually get a straight angle. It's always a little bit off, and because it's always a little bit off, the Enderpearl won't travel in a straight line. It will basically, eventually, it won't, instead of going straight, it will very slowly go off course, and at one point it will hit a wall. Okay, so if this is just 1 wide, then it's either going to always hit a wall or go into unloaded chunks, if that makes any sense. There's obviously a lot to explain here. It's I can't possibly really explain all that. I will maybe put a world download if you want to look at it, but it's pretty complicated. Now, technically speaking, this can actually be done in survival. It's going to cost you quite a lot of stuff, but it can be done in survival, and it's a very, very fast way to travel a very long distance.